What's up? How's it going? I'm Jeremiah with Groundbreak Marketing. We run ads and book appointments for Rap and PPF Shop. We essentially take on the entire front end sales process as well as all of the lead generation and the marketing for all of our shops. So that way, all the shop has to do is just show up the day of the actual appointment and close in person. Today, I'll be walking you through our entire sales process from the second a lead comes in all the way up until the point that they're a booked appointment with an actual card on file so that they actually show up. Full stop, this is probably going to be a really dense video, so make sure you just close all your other tabs, put all the distractions away, and actually lock in. Now, before we even get into any of the actual calling, the scripts, any of that, I have to start off with the thing that's just quietly killing more shops right now than anything else. And that's because everybody's just chasing the new shiny new shortcut. And it's the exact same reason why their leads are going nowhere. Every agency is pushing AI chatbots right now, and it's quietly burning your shop's best lead. So again, right now, every agency, every guru, every software company is screaming the exact same thing at you. Automate it, let the AI handle your leads, set it and forget it. And on the surface, I get why it sounds good. Especially if you're a shop owner and you're already drowning, you're installing, you're managing your guys, let's say you're dealing with suppliers, the idea that a robot can just, handle all of your follow-up, I'm sure sounds like an absolute dream. But I need to walk you through exactly what happens when a bot touches a real lead, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. So here, let me paint the exact picture for you. And for some of you that have already ran ads in the past, this will probably be very familiar. A lead will go ahead, fill out a form, let's say a color change on their car, standard stuff, right? Now, this is what the AI bots do. Within a few seconds, the bot will go ahead and fire off a text message saying, hey, thanks for your interest. What vehicle are you looking to get done? Cool, fine, everything sounds normal. The lead will go ahead and text back. I have a 2022 Porsche Macan. I'm thinking about a satin wrap, but I'm stuck between satin and matte. What's the difference? Now watch what the bot actually does. It doesn't actually hear the response. It's not built to. It just moves on to the next step in its workflow and goes like, hey, awesome, what day works best for you to come in? And right there, that's the exact moment that a lead dies, because that lead just told you something huge. They said, I'm not sure yet. That's a buying signal wrapped in a question. That's a guy standing there with his wallet out, basically asking you to help him make a decision. And the bot completely runs him over just trying to book a time. Because most agencies, most of these gurus, most of these, software companies trying to push a AI, text message sales process are only worried about how many appointments they can quote unquote book without actually caring about how many will actually drive to the shop and show. So now this guy who was genuinely interested, of course, feels like he's talking to a vending machine and will go quiet. He won't book, he won't reply, he's just gone. And you paid for that lead. You spent real ad dollars to get that exact person to raise their hand, and a robot just fumbled him in 2 text messages. Now here's the part that actually matters. And this is the part that I need you to understand. The bot doesn't fail on bad lead. That's what people get wrong. A tire kicker who is never gonna buy, sure, the AI bot will handle just fine because that guy didn't have any actual question. He's just price shopping, and the bot will happily just spit a number at him and he'll ghost anyway, so there's no real loss. Or let's say it actually did book an appointment, there was absolutely no rapport built, and guess what? That appointment is going to no-show because of course they would. The bot fails on your best leads. It fails specifically on the guy who's about to spend $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 because that's the guy who had real specific emotional questions. Like, hey, is this gonna wreck my paint when I take it off in a few years? Or hey, I saw a matte wrap, what's it actually look like compared to satin in person? Is it gonna look cheap? Or hey, my buddy's shop absolutely botched his wrap and it started peeling in a month. How do I know you won't burn me? Those are the questions of somebody who is ready to buy. And the bot will have no real answer for a single one of them. It just loops back to what it's been programmed to do, and that's just saying, hey, what time works for you to come in? So think about what you're actually doing when you put a bot in front of your real leads. You are taking the most expensive, most ready to buy people in your entire pipeline, the exact people your ad spend was designed to find, and you're handing them to the one thing on earth that's guaranteed to lose them. You're not saving time. You're setting your best leads on fire, and you're paying for that privilege. And look, I'm not anti-technology. AI is incredible for a lot of things, but as of right now that I'm recording, called it June 19, 2026, the technology just isn't quite there yet to sell a high-ticket, emotional, custom product over a text message to a stranger. Everybody can feel when they're talking to a robot. I can feel it, and your customer about to drop a down payment on a car amount of money on their wrap can absolutely feel it as well. And the second they feel it, the trust is gone, and so is the sale. Now, again, when it comes to these AI, chatbot stuff, they do have the real, use case in a business. However, the way that we would go ahead and use them in our company would be to schedule callbacks. We would never, ever use an AI bot to maintain an actual sales process over text message, right? The most that we would use an AI chatbot is to go ahead and text a lead saying, hey, when's a good time to shoot you a text message, once we're back in the shop, or hey, when's a good time to call you once you're free. That really is the best use case for an actual lead. So in general, that's why a bot just really can't do the job. But here's the thing, it actually goes a lot deeper than just AI, because the exact same reason that a bot fails is the reason selling over text in general fails, even when it's a real human, even if it's you doing the texting. And this is the thing that's gonna ruffle some feathers, because a lot of you are doing this right now. A cold lead that filled out an ad is never buying a $5,000 wrap off of a text message, no matter what they tell you. And this is a hill I will die on. You should never, ever, ever, ever just text a fresh lead. I don't care if the lead literally writes back saying, hey, just text me the price. You need to call. And I know that sounds a bit stubborn, so let me actually explain why, because the reasoning here is the important part. When you text a lead, you are voluntarily giving up every single advantage that you have as a salesperson. Think about what selling actually is. It's building enough value and enough trust that somebody feels comfortable handing you a lot of money. Now, how do you build that value over text? You can't. You're sending sentences into a void and hoping that they read them the way that you meant them. How do you handle an objection over text? You can't, because you can't hear the hesitation in their voice. You can't ask the follow-up question in real time. They just read your paragraph, think, and then they put the phone down. How do you even tell if this person is serious or they're just bored, taking a shit on the toilet, scrolling Instagram? You can't. Text messages totally strip away tone, timing, urgency, rapport, all of it. And I see so many of you shop owners just quoting prices like this over text messages, wondering why nobody's taking you seriously. And now layer the actual money on top of that. We're not selling a $30 oil change. We're talking about a multi-$1,000 custom luxury decision on something that the customer is going to look at and drive every single day. People do not commit that kind of money to a business that they have never spoken to, much less based off of a couple green text bubbles that came in from an Instagram ad. It just does not happen. The bigger the ticket, the more a human being actually needs to be, involved on the process, so that the lead knows that they're talking to a competent business before they hand over a ton of money. Now, here's a part that I really want you shop owners to sit with, because this is the mindset thing underneath it. Every single time I have talked to a shop owner who insists on just firing numbers back over text, and I dig into why, it just always comes back to the exact same thing. The text message feels safe to them. There's no rejection over text. Nobody can say no to your face. You don't actually have to get on the phone, build value, and risk hearing, whoa, that's too expensive. I can just paint a card for that much. So texting becomes this comfortable little hiding spot for you to feel like you're working your leads without actually having to sell. But that comfort is the exact same reason why it doesn't work. Sales is uncomfortable on purpose. A discomfort is the job. So the shops that are actually crushing it right now, they're not the ones with the slickest text automations. They're the ones picking up the phone and having real conversations while everybody else is hiding behind text threads and bots, wondering why none of their leads are taking them seriously. Communication is not old-fashioned. Communication is the entire game of sales. Okay, great. So now that we agree, we're calling, not texting, not botting, actually picking up a phone, that in itself still just isn't enough, because there's a second piece to this that is just as important as the call itself, and it's the timing of the call. If you're not calling a fresh lead within 5 minutes, you've already lost them, and the reason why is just psychology. The answer to when do I call my leads is immediately, within 5 minutes. And honestly, if you can do it within 30 seconds or less of that form coming in, great, even better. And I want to actually explain the psychology of why this matters so much, because once you get it, you'll never let a lead sit again. The moment somebody fills out your form is the single hottest they are ever going to be, period. That is peak. It is only downhill from that second forward. Think about what just happened in that person's head. They are maybe scrolling, probably not even actively, shopping for a wrap, and your ad stopped them. Let's say you're creative, your ad, it hit some nerve. Maybe it was a clean color change on a car like theirs. Maybe it spoke to a problem that they've been sitting on for a while. And then in that little burst of excitement and impulse, they filled out your form. Right now, in this exact moment, they want it, but that desire is not permanent. It's like a wave, and it's just starting to fade the exact moment that they hit submit. Nobody sits around for 3 hours getting more and more excited about a wrap, waiting, by the phone specifically for you. It's actually the literal opposite happens. The longer you wait, the more that wave crashes back down to normal life, right? So when you finally call them an hour later, you're not selling to the same person who filled out the form. You're calling a guy who's back at work, maybe he's annoyed that his boss is watching, who's distracted on a million other things, and who half the time just doesn't even remember filling out a damn form in the first place. So you're not writing a wave of desire anymore. You're trying to manufacture it from a dead stop, and that's just 1,000 times harder. This is why your answer rate falls off a cliff the longer you wait. And it's not just that, fewer people pick up. It's that the ones that do actually pick up are now colder, more skeptical, and harder to book. Speed isn't just about catching them while they're available, it's about catching them while they still want it. So the takeaway here is simple, but it's brutal. A lead's value literally decays by the minute from the second it comes in. Treat every fresh lead like it's on fire, because in terms of how badly they want you to sell to them, it literally is. And that fire goes out fast. Now, if you're a shop that's actually serious about scaling and you're running, let's say, anywhere between 50 to 150 bucks a day in ad spend, you're about to run into a very real problem with what I just told you. Because calling every single lead within 5 minutes sounds great on paper until the leads actually start pouring in and you're trying to run an entire other business at the same time. It just becomes physically impossible to by hand. And that's where all the cool, tools stop being a luxury and become a non-negotiable. You genuinely cannot scale a wrap shop without a real CRM and a power dialer, and the math behind it is honestly just brutal once you lay it out. So let's start with where the lead lands, because this is the actual foundation, and you'd be shocked how many shops screw this up. The number of shops I've walked into where the leads are getting dumped into a Google Sheet, or worse, they're just being emailed to the owner who has to check it maybe twice a day, is just genuinely shocking to me. That's a massive leak in the bottom of the boat. And if your leads aren't landing somewhere that alerts you instantly, you've already lost a speed game that we just talked about before you've even picked up the phone. So step one, your Facebook, Instagram, your Google lead forms need to pipe directly into a CRM the second somebody fills them out. Not a sheet, not an email, a real CRM that pings you the moment that lead lands, so you know to call them right then and there while they're still hot. Everybody in one place, every single lead tracked, nothing slipping through the cracks. Now, the part that actually unlocks scale is a power dialer. And let me explain what this thing actually does, because if you've never used one, you don't realize how much time you're bleeding. When you dial from your iPhone, think about every single individual step. Let's say, you open the lead, you have to read the number, you have to punch it in digit by digit, you hit call, you wait until someone, actually picks up. Let's say maybe it just goes straight to voicemail, you hang up, you then have to repeat that entire process for the next lead, and you do it all again. Every one of those little steps is dead time, and it adds up to a massive amount of dead time once spread across a day. A power dialer kills all of it. It loads every single lead into an entire list, and the second you hang up on a call, it's automatically dialing the next. Some power dialers, the way that we have ours set up, automatically double dial, and ours specifically drops a voicemail, like it's just a pre-recorded voicemail, so that you're not having to literally repeat yourself, 100, 200 times a day. And here's the actual math. This is why it's not optional. Dialing by hand with all that dead, time, a person might be able to grind out 30 calls in, let's say, 2 hours. And of course, it's just gonna be absolutely exhausted. That same person on a power dialer does literally 5 to 10 times, more volume in that exact same window. And I'm not speaking like theoretically here. Like as a company, we have hard KPIs on our sales team, and the minimum floor just to keep your job here is ripping $200 a day. And obviously, we have a bonus, let's say if you hit, 300, right? But you do not hit those sorts of numbers from an iPhone. It's just not humanly possible, right? So just picture it at volume. You have 100 leads, maybe that you have to work through. The shop dialing by hand gets to maybe 30 of them while they're hot, and the other 70 are just going to sit there, getting colder and colder and just dying off. The shop on a dialer hits all 100 while they're still on fire. Same leads, same amount of ad spend, completely different outcome. And the only difference is just the tool. That's why I say, if you've got, people on your team calling from personal cell phones, you're actively handicapping your own shop. You spent the money to just generate the leads. Don't lose 2/3 of them just on dead hang time. So now you've got the actual system to reach out to the people fast and at volume, but here's the reality that nobody wants to hear. Even with a dialer, even calling within 5 minutes, most people are not going to pick up on that first call. And this is the exact spot where almost every shop on earth quits just way too early and leaves a massive amount of money just sitting there on the table. Most shops give up on a lead after 1 or 2 calls. That's exactly why they're broke. The money is in the follow-up, and here's the cadence that we actually run. And we call this the hammer them method, right? So what happens when a lead fills out a form is that they land into our CRM for our setters to dial. From that point on, as soon as they fill out the form, they get shot over an email. That email includes very basic information on the actual shop in question with, posts from social media, Instagram, some of their previous work. From that point on, after the email, they'll get shot a text message saying, hey, this is setter name at, specific shop location, just confirming, is this a good number to reach you at? We like asking a question off of that first text message because it almost always prompts a response. It's just a very simple question, and from that point on, we'll be able to see if it's actually a real lead or just like a fake, dud number. From that point on, we'll go ahead and fire off another text message. If they do not respond to the first 2 text messages, within 2 minutes, we are on the phone with them, right? So from that point on, we will go ahead and we'll shoot them a call. If they do not pick up that call, we will go ahead and double dial. If they do not pick up that call, we will go ahead and drop a voicemail. From that point on, let's say, we went ahead and we called them and they still didn't pick up, we will call them every single day, twice a day for an entire week until they actually pick up the phone, right? And here's the thing, obviously, explaining it like this kind of over, voice like this, it sounds a bit aggressive. However, you'd be surprised on how many leads are actually pretty thankful that we're constantly following up with them, right? Because you can imagine, some people are filling out this form, at work or when they're driving, and they'll go ahead, they'll get the text message, they'll get the call, but it just might not be a good time for them to pick up, right? So we believe in just following up with people constantly until they're ready to actually pick up. If for whatever reason they do not pick up for the entire week, it's almost safe to assume that they're just not a real lead. But regardless, we'll be putting them into a long-term, lead nurture until, they're ready to actually pick up the phone, right? But let's say we went ahead, we called them, they actually did pick up on, call it day 2. We will go ahead and move on to the actual call script, right? But again, just before we even go into any of this, you need to remember, like, the rhythm that you should set up as an actual, KPI for your shop should be twice a day. every single day for the first full week. As well, just make sure you're hitting all the actual correct timing, right? Make sure you're calling them, in the morning, in the evenings. Don't call them, if they fill out a form at noon and they didn't pick up the first time, you probably shouldn't keep contacting them at noon, because noon might not be a good time for them to actually pick up the phone, right? The follow-up, the cadence, all this is extremely important. You need to take this into account once you're actually trying to really push and scale a shop. But great, let's say, you followed up, you stayed on top of them, and now, the moment that we've been building finally happens. They pick up the phone. This is where the entire thing is won or lost, and it happens in the first 30 seconds. So I want to break down exactly how you open this call word for word, because the instinct most shop owners have here is dead wrong, and it just tanks the call before it ever gets going. The first 30 seconds of the call decides everything, and the worst thing you can do here is sound like you're about to sell something. So here's a mistake. A lead will pick up, and the shop owner who's just super excited and who just wants to sell just immediately comes in hot, right? Either most shop owners will just start pitching, or worse, the lead will say something like, hey, yeah, I was curious how much for a wrap, and then the shop owner immediately just blurts out a price or just a range, right? Both of these kill the call immediately, and I'll just explain why in a second, but here's how you should actually be opening phone calls with leads. When we hop on a call with any lead, this is the exact process that we use. We say, hey, is this John? Hey, John, how's it going? This is Jeremiah with, insert whatever your shop name is. I'm the appointment coordinator here. I'm calling about the form you just filled out about potentially, PPFing your vehicle. Yeah, well, I've got 5-10 minutes here. Figured I'd just shoot you a quick holler just to kind of walk you through some of our options. Did I catch you at a good time? Now let me break down exactly why every piece of that is deliberate, because none of this is an accident. First, I'll say, I'm the appointment coordinator here. That one phrase does a ton of work. The second somebody thinks they've got a commission hungry salesperson on the phone, their walls go straight up. They get guarded. They start looking for the exit. But a coordinator just helps you get scheduled. That word instantly lowers their defenses, because it signals that this isn't a high pressure pitch. It's just a helpful call about them getting some options. You're not a closer, you're just a helpful guy. Second, notice I said walk you through some of our options, not talk about pricing, not see if you want to buy. Options, that sounds like value to them, not a sales pitch. And third, did I catch you at a good time? I'm asking permission. That little bit of courtesy makes them feel respected and in control, which paradoxically makes them feel way more willing to actually talk to you. Nobody wants to feel ambushed. Now, here's the most important part of the whole opener, and it's what I like to call setting the frame. Right after they say, yeah, this is a good time, I'll go ahead and say this. Perfect, John. I know you are coming in from a cold ad, right? So what I've kind of found works best in these first phone calls, if you're all right with it, is just getting a little bit of context on what exactly you're looking to do with the Porsche. Maybe why you're even interested in potentially PPFing or wrapping or whatever service you filled out in the first place. And immediately after that, I'll go and say, and if this is something I'm confident that we can just knock out of the park for you, the next step from here would be getting you locked in with the owner of the company, for a full vehicle design session. Now, boom, why does that matter so much? Because in those two sentences, I have completely taken control of the call without the customer even noticing. And I've told them exactly where this call is going. I've set the agenda. I'm going to ask them questions, and if it's a fit, the next step from here is an appointment. There are no surprises when I ask for an appointment later. It's not just a sudden pitch out of nowhere. It's the thing I told them we'd do at the very start, and they've already agreed to the path. This is the difference between leading a call and just reacting to one. The customer should feel like they're in good hands with a professional who's done this 1,000 times, because that's exactly what you are. And this is also the answer to the how much problem. When they open with, I just want a number, you do not answer it. You redirect with the frame. You go ahead and say, hey, yeah, no, good question. I'll absolutely give you a number, but pricing really depends a lot on the car and what you're trying to do. So if you don't mind if I just ask you a couple things real quick, just so that I'm not giving you a random, guesstimate that changes, the second we actually see it. You're not dodging, you're being a professional. A doctor doesn't just quote you a price on surgery, before the exam, and neither should you. Okay, so let's say you went ahead, you opened the call, you've taken the frame, they're comfortable, and now they're talking. Now we'll get into the actual real meat and potatoes of the entire call, and this is the part that separates the pros from the order taker. From this point on, we need to find out two things. We need to find out, why they actually want this, and then we'll be using their own answers to build the value. Most people will go ahead and rush this part or just try to skip it entirely, and it's the single biggest reason their calls fall apart later. When you get on the phone with the lead, you need to stop pitching the wrap and start asking the right questions, because the customer will sell themselves far better than you ever could. So here's the core idea that you have to wrap your head around. People do not believe what you tell them nearly as much as what they believe they tell themselves. If I get on the phone and start listening about how great our wraps are, that's just me bragging, and they've heard every shop brag. But if I ask the right questions and get them to actually say out loud why they want this, using their own words, their own reason, and you obviously cannot argue with your own reason. So my entire job in this part of the call is to just shut up and listen. The first question that we like to ask is just, no, feel free to shoot me straight, man. What's the main thing that you're looking to do with the car? Like, what made you fill out the form in the first place? And then from that point on, I go silent, and they'll just tell me. It's never just, I just want to wrap. It's always something deeper. It's, oh, I just got the car and it's my dream car, honest, and I just want it to look exactly how I pictured it. Or, the paint's got some damage, I'm just sick of looking at it. Right there, that is the gold, because now they've actually handed me an actual emotional response. I'm going to hand it right back to them. And from that point on, we go deeper, just layer by layer. We'll go ahead and say, awesome. So if we nail this, wrap exactly the way that you want it, what's the plan with the car? Like, is this part of a bigger build that you're working on? And just kind of, finishing touches. From that point on, we're just getting more context on how much this wrap means to them. From that point on, we'll go ahead and we'll chunk it down on the actual look. So like, hey, when you picture the vehicle wrap, did you have a specific color in mind, or are you still, kind of in the brainstorming phase? You leaning, gloss and matte, honestly not sure yet. Most of the time, they're not sure. They have a vibe, just not a final decision. So now that we have our ammo, they've told me, why they want it, what it means to them, and that, they're totally not locked in on the actual detail. This is where we build a value. And here's the principle that matters most. You need to sell the destination, not the flight. Nobody cares about your process. Nobody's buying because your install takes 2 days, or you use a specific brand of vinyl, or you've got some fancy squeegee technique. That's the flight. And nobody buys a plane ticket because they love sitting on planes. They buy it for the destination, the beach, the vacation, the result. So you need to sell them the result, and you need to build it directly using the words that they just gave you. So from that point on, it should sound like this. Okay, here's the deal with wraps I do want to be upfront about. The actual wrap material in and of itself is actually pretty thin, right? So it just tends to magnify whatever's already on your paint. Any, rock chips, swirls, peeling, clear coat, all that stuff tends to show through worse, not better, right? So before anything, we actually need to, inspect your paint in person to make sure, your paint's even a good candidate for a wrap. And then from that point on, boom, now the appointment isn't optional, it's necessary, and it's for their protection. You can then add on top of that, and here's the other thing that most people don't realize, a gloss versus a satin versus a matte, they're all going to look completely different in person than they do off of like a video from Instagram or TikTok. And we've had guys, dead set on a matte black, and they walk out with a satin because the matte looked nothing like what they pictured in their head. Do you see what that does? It connects directly to the uncertainty that they've already admitted earlier. They told me they weren't super sure on the finish, and now I've made seeing it in person the obvious move. You then paint the destination, right? So yeah, when you come in, we'll go ahead, we'll move some cars around here at the shop and get yours pulled in for a full paint inspection. From that point on, let's say everything checks out, your paint's in solid shape. We'll go ahead and you'll sit down one-on-one with the owner of the company, and we'll use our shop software here to show you, your exact car on the screen in every single color, every single finish, before you even commit to a single dollar, right? And it's more than anything, it's just a cool experience. You'll be able to touch and feel some of the real vinyls, because the actual grade of the material makes a massive difference in person as well. You essentially need to picture the fact that, that they'll be walking out knowing exactly what they're getting, with an actual final quote in hand, right? It's not meant to be an actual sales pitch anymore. That's just me describing an experience that they genuinely want, built entirely on the reasons that they themselves gave me, a couple minutes earlier. They're not being sold, they're being understood, and that's what closes the actual appointment. And from that point on, now they're bought in. They want it. You can hear it in their voice. They're genuinely excited about coming in and seeing their car on the screen. Here's what a lot of shop owners get greedy about and just blow the whole thing on. They try to close the actual wrap right there on the phone. And that's a massive mistake. And understanding why is the entire core of how our process works. Do not try to close a wrap over the phone. The only thing you're closing on this call is the appointment. And that distinction is everything. Here's a reframe that changes everything. You're not selling a wrap on the initial phone call. Nobody is handing over $7,000 to a voice they met 4 minutes ago from an ad. That sale needs to happen in person when they're standing in your shop, looking at your work, watching their own car, lit up on the screen, feeling materials, building real trust with your actual shop face to face. That's where the wrap closes. So if you try to force, the whole sale on the phone, you're pushing for something that the situation literally just can't support, and you're going to lose them. So what are you actually closing on? The appointment. That's the only win you're going for on the initial phone call. And once you internalize that, the whole call gets easier, because a free appointment is an infinitely easier yes than a 5-figure commitment. Nobody hesitates to come look at their car on the screen for free. So you confirm it simply. Now here's a piece that actually protects the entire thing. And it's the difference between a booking and an actual in-person shown appointment. You need to take a card on file in order to hold the appointment. And I need to be crystal clear about this, because shops screw this up. This is not a deposit. A deposit will go ahead and scare away cold leads, because asking a stranger to put real money down on a job that they haven't seen yet will absolutely nuke your bookings. A card on file is completely different. You go ahead and you'll tell them, hey, I know the console is 100% free. There's no amount due today. Nothing gets charged. The card is just there to hold the bank. There is a small $25, $50 no-show fee, only if, somebody completely ghosts us without rescheduling. And the way you frame it makes all the difference, right? So the way that we like to say is, before I go ahead and finalize this, we do have a really busy shop right now, and no shows with no communication completely just, disrupt our install schedule. So we do take a card on file just to hold your spot. The console is totally free. Nothing's due today. There's just a small, no-show fee if you ghost without rescheduling. Totally fair, right? And then you go straight into the actual close without pausing. Yeah, awesome. So will you be using a Visa or a MasterCard to confirm the appointment? Notice, I didn't ask if they wanted to put a card down. I asked which card. That's the assumptive close. You presume the yes, and you keep the momentum rolling. That card is the single biggest thing protecting your show rate. It's the exact line between a real committed appointment and a flaky, yeah, maybe I'll swing by, that never shows. No card, it's a maybe. Card on file, it's an appointment. Now, the second you start asking for that card, you are going to hit resistance, and it's just natural. It almost always comes out the exact same way, in the exact same words, on call after call after call. So I want to go ahead and break this down in detail because it trips up basically every setter and every shop owner alive. And the moment you actually understand what's happening underneath it, your show rate changes overnight. When a lead says, hey, I'm driving, I can't give my card info right now, they are almost always lying to you, and I can prove it. So you ask for the card and here it comes. Oh, I'm driving right now, or oh, I'm at work, I can't get to my wallet, or yeah, can you just call me back later for that part? And on the surface, it sounds completely reasonable, right? It sounds like a legitimate timing problem. So the natural instinct is to go, oh yeah, no worries, I can just call you back later, and you let them off the hook. And that right there is the single biggest mistake you can make, because that is not a timing problem. That's an objection just wearing a costume. And here's how I can prove it to you ironclad. Those exact people, the ones who say, oh, I'm just driving, or just call me back later, they will no-show almost every single time. Now think about that for a second. If somebody genuinely, truly did want an actual consultation and was just legitimately busy in that moment, what would they do? They'd call you back. They text you their card when they got home. They'd find a way because they wanted it. But those that don't want to give it never do. The call me later leads vanish into thin air, and that tells you everything. I'm driving was never the real reason. It was just the most convenient way to just slip off the hook without actually having to say no to your. So let me tell you what's actually happening in their head, because this is the real psychology. They got excited on the call. You did a great job. You built the value. And in that moment, they said yes to a time because saying yes felt good and just saying no would have just felt awkward. But the second you asked for the card, something shifted. Putting the card down is the first moment that little voice in their head goes, wait, this is becoming real. This is real money attached now. There's real commitment here. And I'm sitting here on my lunch break. That flinch of commitment fear is the real objection. I'm driving is just a polite, mask that they put on top of it. So you don't fight the situation. You don't argue about, whether they're really driving or not. That's a trap. So what we like to do is we just hold the line. We won't go ahead and schedule the appointment without a card on file, right? And watch what happens. The serious buyer, the one who actually wants it, says, yeah, you know what? Just give me a second. Let me pull over. So you don't fight the situation. You don't argue about, whether or not they're really driving or whether or not they don't really have their card on them. That's a trap. Instead, you just calmly hold standard, say, hey, totally hear you, no problem at all. The thing is, our system here just really doesn't let us, actually hold a bay without a card on file. And it really only takes about 30 seconds. So you want to pull over real quick, or would you rather I just stay on the line, with you until you get to where you're going? And that second option is the entire key. You're not laying them off the hook, but you're not being a jerk about it either. You're staying right there with them, removing the excuse while also being, completely accommodating. And that, believe it or not, is a win for you too, because instead of having to block out your afternoon, prepping the shop, moving cars around, all for, somebody who is just going to no-show, you just won that time back. The card ask doesn't just protect your schedule, it's a truth serum. It instantly sorts the real buyers from the people who are just, trying to be nice to get off the phone. So the card's on file, the time is locked, the appointment is real. You think you're done, right? Well, you are not, because here's a hard truth that took me a while to fully respect. A booking and an actual show are two completely different things. And this final step, the part everybody treats as an afterthought, is what protects every single thing you just worked for on this entire phone call. A booked wrap appointment is worthless if they don't actually show up. So here's exactly what we do to lock in a show after an intro call is over. So the appointment is set, but a calendar slot is just an empty promises, and promises break. People's cars break down, life happens, excitement fades, a better offer comes up on a different ad. Your job between the booking and the actual appointment is to do everything you can to make sure that that person actually walks through the door. So the day before the appointment, you need a call that they're still going to show up to actually confirm. And I want to be consistent here, a call, not a text. Same as the entire rest of this process. You want to actually hear them say in their own words, yeah, I'll be there. Because a verbal, out loud confirmation creates a real psychological commitment that a text reminder, sitting unread on their phone never will. A confirmed appointment shows up at a dramatically higher rate than one just sitting silent on your calendar hoping for the best. But here's the real trick, and it's in how you frame the confirmation, because you can actually make it personal in a way that makes, ghosting feel wrong. At the end of the booking call, you say something like this. Awesome, so yeah, we're 100% locked in for tomorrow at noon with the owner, or if you're self-setting with yourself. Now, John, I do have to be pretty, I'm just gonna go ahead and shoot straight with you. If anything does come up for you between now and then, if for whatever reason you still can't make it, could you just do me a huge personal favor and just shoot me a heads up ahead of time? It's my job to keep the owner's schedule full here, and I'm literally blocking off his personal time for the appointment, and just no shows kind of reflect poorly on me, right? So just keep me in the loop either way. Sound fair? And you just let that land. Think about what that does. You've just turned this from a faceless transaction with a business into a personal favor between two human beings. Now, if they ghost, they're not bailing on some company. They're letting down, Jeremiah, the guy who was cool to them on the phone, the guy whose job it actually affects. That's a completely different emotional weight, and it dramatically cuts your no-shows. People will flake on a business without a second thought, but they will genuinely feel bad about flaking on a person that they connected with. And then comes a handoff, and this is where my part of the process ends. They show up to the shop, the in-person consultation takes place, the paint inspection, the design session, the car on screen, the touch and feel of the vinyls, the final quote, the actual close. All of that happens in person, where the shop has every single advantage: the trust, the visuals, the experience, the face-to-face. Our entire job here as a company, everything I just walked you through in this entire video, every step from the speed to lead to the no text rule to the framing the card on file, all of it existed for this exact moment and this exact thing only: delivering a real qualified card on file appointment that actually walks through the door. That is the whole game. Get them in the door on time, winding it, and let the in-person close do what the in-person close does best. So that's the entire machine start to finish. You cannot text leads expecting them to close. You need to call because nobody hands over 5 figures to a text thread. And you need to call within 5 minutes while they're still on fire. So that's the entire machine start to finish. You need to make sure that you're not texting leads, trying to sell them over, bubbles. You need to make sure that you're calling because nobody hands over 5 figures to a text thread, and you need to call within 5 minutes while they're still on fire. As well, make sure you just have a proper CRM and a power dialer built inside of it so that the volume never buries you. But either way, now you know the entire process and what it actually takes to scale a wrap shop. So go ahead, use it, run it, and I'll go ahead and catch you in the next one.